Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. So today we're going to meet two very interesting women, Esther and Vashti. In Jewish tradition, we have a holiday that we celebrate around March. It's a very happy holiday. We wear costumes and people drink a lot, and there are celebrations everywhere. But what do we celebrate in this holiday? What we celebrate is a story that tells the saving of the Jews from ancient pogroms or riots that people wanted to do against them in Persia. I will leave a link below that tells the whole story of Purim. But in the heart of the story, we meet two very interesting women. One is Vashti and the other is Esther. Now Vashti and Esther, each of them in her turn, will be married to the king of Persia, ancient Persia. And what they do, the way that they act and save people and also stand their ground, is something very important that we can learn from. In the old world, when they used to have a feast or a celebration or a party, it wasn't like today. You didn't go like for the night and then go home. They could last days, maybe sometimes even weeks. And in one of those festives, one of those feasts, the king of Persia is calling Vashti, his wife, to come and dance in front of him and his guests from the palace of the women where she was. Some say that he asked her to come and dance naked. Vashti refuses. She is actually considered today in this story one of the first time that a woman stands her right and said, "I'm not going to do that. It's disrespectful. I'm not going to do it just because you asked and you are the king." And she stands her ground. So she's one of the very few feminists that we meet in the early stories. When it comes to Vashti, later explanations that were written by men, say that she refused to come out and dance because suddenly she had this rush on her forehead, or suddenly she grew a tail or horns. But maybe what stands behind the story is that she knew that if she's going to come out and perform this dance, maybe naked, because the king told her to, in front of a bunch of drunk men, then she will set a problematic example to women everywhere. As a queen, she knew that she needs to set an example. She's going to stand her rights and stand her ground, because if the queen does that, then all women will be required to do the same and it will be okay. And maybe she didn't want it to be okay. So she decided to do what she did as a queen, to make sure that women will follow her example and stand up for themselves. But what happens as a result from that she is banished from the palace, that she is no longer queen. What happened to her after that, there are many interpretations, but she actually exits the story. The one who takes her place is Esther. Esther comes from the local then Jewish community in Persia. Through a very long story, the king meets her, and she actually does many things that they end up saving the Jews. She is very brave. She actually makes the king listen to her. And this ends up with the saving of the Jews that we all celebrate today. But Esther as a character has a few very interesting characteristics that do stand out. Her Jewish name was Hadassah, but when she enters the palace, she enters as Esther. Esther is a name that may be referring or originated from ancient goddesses of the Near East. We know of Ishtar, the Mesopotamian goddess of love and war. We have Astaroth, the Canaanite goddess. And in ancient Persia, she's sometimes being called Istahar. So Esther is actually coming to influence the whole story when she resembles those ancient goddesses of love and war. Also, her name, some refer to her as Stara, which is one of the ancient words that will later on lead us to the word star. Sometimes they also refer to her as someone who represents the moon and the stars, and also the morning star. The morning star, which shines right before the sunset, is Venus, a star that we know represented those goddesses. In Hebrew, sometimes you refer to the star as the gazelle of the dawn, and a gazelle will later on become a symbol of the Shekinah, the feminine manifestation of the divine in the world that connects the upper heavens with the earth and brings down fertility from above. An interesting thing regarding the age of Esther in the story is that some claim that she was either 75 years old, 80, or even 90. There is a chance that they added years to her original age because they wanted to glorify her wisdom and her acts. Or maybe this is how old people were and we just don't know it yet. Things that Esther does in the palace of the king of Persia could put her in danger. But she knows when she enters that she has people behind her that she comes to save. And before she begins to do all of those things, she actually tells them, I want you to fast for me in case something happens to me. Usually, fasting is something that you do when you're wishing for someone to forgive you, or maybe use it as some kind of an apology that you want to give to the divine. Here, she's using it as almost like a pre-act that you want to do in order to show that you know that you're doing something dangerous and you already need the assistance of the heavens. She created this very interesting balance between the divine help, the divine assistance, and the divine realms that she's actually representing, and she needs their help, and the brave acts that a woman must do right here on this earth to create an effect, to change something in reality, to save her people. So sometimes when we dig into the ancient sources of festive, of holidays that we have today, we meet women that we can look up to and learn so much from what they did or the stories they told about them in ancient times. Women who stood up for themselves and for their people, like Vashti and Esther. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.